The best coaches in the game, we really ain't playing. We regroup up in the Slack chat where the coaches debrief. We be piecing these puzzles, occupy the chunk of the pie. Ain't no lie when we hit the block, helmet's casket is top. You be seeing helmet after helmet, helmet after helmet. First place, second place, fifth place, eighth place, 12th place, 15, 16, 20. So many helmets, you got blurred vision, we got too many. Tick your check. Oh man, shit. They got us fucked up. Army, regroup. We pledge always to have that edge. We don't fire warning shots. Competition just dropped. We locked and loaded before lock. Whatever the time, yeah. Do you even correlate?
Being the best requires a willingness to outwork your competition. There's always someone smarter, faster, sharper, more naturally gifted to come around.
Welcome back to DFS Army. This is FantasyFling, looking back at Week 12, Milly Maker review and MME strategy of top DFS pros. Thank you for joining me. We are, of course, going to take a look back at what won the Milly Maker this week. It was a positive ROI week for a lot of top DFS pros in the Milly Maker, and DFS Army was all over the leaderboard. So we are also going to take a brief look at that. So let's get into it. All right, so article over at dfsarmy.com, which I tweet out every week when I am finished with it. But what this does is, we're going to take a look at each week of the Milly Maker and what lineup won it that week, and, kind of compare it to seasonal trends and, just looking back over years, to see if we can find some trends that we can spot and predict in the future to really construct the best lineup that will give us a chance to win this contest. Back testing is very important. You listen to a lot of DFS pros. They talk about it as part of their process. DFS Army VIP Rapid Fire XD, when he won the Milly Maker week 1, he talked a lot about back testing and the coach's notes in the domination station. So that said, this was obviously a kind of an ugly build as far as winning GPP lineups go. And that's, how it works sometimes. There's going to be outliers, obviously. But what I saw in this lineup that was kind of consistent with skinny stacks and then, 2 to 3 secondary stacks. We tend to see that in winning Milly Maker builds over and over. So with this lineup here, we had 227 points. So low scoring week. And when we have lower scores, we are going to have skinnier stacks, of course, and it's going to be more of a contrarian lineup. So Kyler Murray was the top quarterback. Well, not the top quarterback, one of the top, but he was the quarterback in this lineup, 26 points. Josh Jacobs, 51 points, who absolutely broke the slate. So he was low owned, mainly because he had a questionable tag because of a calf injury, but he broke the slate. I guess he really wasn't that questionable because he got a career high 33 carries, 51 points. James Conner, 25 points. Chris Godwin, 32 points. Zay Jones, 30. Garrett Wilson, 26. Mark Andrews, 11. And Treylon Burks, 17. Jets D, 8. So 227 total points. Now there were 3 stacks, a primary stack and 2 secondary stacks. So Kyler Murray plus James Conner, which it's obviously not ideal, right, to stack a quarterback with a running back, a running quarterback, and then a running back who doesn't really get a lot of targets. So this was obviously an outlier. This is something that if you do this most weeks, it's going to be a negative EV decision. But Connor caught a pass and took it to the house for a touchdown. So that obviously worked in this case. And the two combined for over 420 all-purpose yards. Now, Zay Jones and Mark Andrews, this was a stack. It wasn't really necessary, but, again, we do see consistency in secondary stacks, game stacks, 1 on each team. So Zay Jones, 30 points, Mark Andrews, 11 points. And then Garrett Wilson stacked with the New York Jets D. So total stacking boards, 127. And very contrarian lineup. So you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 players, only 78% ownership. Now, as far as total ownership, this was 103%. So second time in as many weeks when we've seen a contrary lineup construction. We did have a big run where the chalk was smashing with ownership over 150% for an entire month. But the last 2 weeks has been more so what you would expect from a large field GPP like the Milly Maker. So combined total ownership, 84% over the past 2 weeks. So we did have some mega chalk. So, with some of these value guys, you knew if they smashed, this was going to be another chalk smash slate. But Jeff Wilson, 54% owned, more than half the field had Jeff Wilson, and he failed, even though he was a great play. He failed. The results, they're going to be more contrarian, obviously, when so much of the field is on a play like that. So top leverage plays, mentioned it, Josh Jacobs, 3%. Smash squad all week. A lot of people, myself included, were scared off of the questionable tag. Didn't matter for him. He got a career high 33 carries, over 300 all-purpose yards and 2 touchdowns. Top leverage play, 51 points, 3% owned. Zay Jones, nobody was really on him, obviously. We were more so on Christian Kirk, but he was just a way to get different off of Kirk and Andrews stacks, which, I believe Kirk was like 10% owned and Andrews was obviously a little higher than that, so 17%. So this was a way to get different, and he obviously smashed. And then Kyler Murray leveraged off of the chalkier quarterbacks on the slate. 14% Geno, 10% Mahomes, 15% Burrow, and 13% Tua. Now, for me, what really stands out from this lineup and really why it was such a big outlier is you have 3 players in the 4K range that combined for a mind-boggling 73.9 points. So almost 75 points from 3 players in the 4K range. Kind of unheard of. Very much an outlier. Most Milly Maker winners, you will see maybe 1 to 2 4K players who really hit. So, but it's just weird to see 3 of them. This lineup had 3. So outlier among outliers. And then finally on ceiling, are we regressing to the mean? First couple of months of the NFL season brought a lot of high scores and thus thicker stacks. But in the past month or so, we've seen a decline in GPP winning scoring. Past 3 weeks, we have an average score of about 221 points, which brings the seasonal average to 243 points. 243, that is actually the average that we saw in 2020. And 2021, it even declined from there. So went down to 233 points. The reason why we really want to know those averages is because they play a big part in lineup construction. So in weeks when the score is low, the skinny stacks are in, as this week when we actually had a DFS Army VIP play second time in the Milly Maker this year. We've had a DFS Army VIP place top 2 in the Milly Maker. So we'll get into that here in a second. And by the way, if y'all watch the channel and you're subscribed to the channel, but you're not a DFS Army VIP, right now you can try a VIP membership for free for 1 month. You can go to dfsarmy.com, click the link on my article. If you follow me on Twitter at FantasyFling, you can at me, you can click the link, and you can get access to that. So you can try this for free. And basically what this is, also, if you just hit dfsarmy.com/free/offer, these are several of different sites you can try. If you sign up, use code DFS Army, you will get a month for free. So let's go ahead and get into the MME strategy portion of the show. Now, as I said, positive ROI for a lot of top DFS pros this week. And when I say top DFS pros, the guys that we're looking at are basically top 5 DFS pros in the world. So a lot of positive ROI for them. And, we're really going to get into it as the reason why a lot of times it's just 1 or 2 players that they had minimum exposure to, but they had that exposure to them and it was able to get them high enough for it to be a positive ROI day. So we'll start with Utica. His top lineup, he had a Trevor Lawrence +2, Zay Jones, Evan Ingram, no bringbacks. So just Trevor Lawrence +2, 200 points. Very contrarian, 65%. But the difference maker really in this lineup was Josh Jacobs. I mean, he even survived in 1 point from Evan Ingram, simply because Josh Jacobs smashed for 51 points. This was his top lineup, of course. Now, he had a lot of QB +1 and bringbacks in his lineup. So this is obviously something that is kind of taken over. The start of the season, we saw a lot more skinny stacks. The very first season, Rapid Fire XG won the Milly Maker. It was a skinny stack. And then for, several weeks, we were seeing some heavy quarterback +2 stacks, just some games that went off. Miami and Baltimore, Seattle and Detroit. That game was crazy stacked. But we're starting to see it go back to more of the skinny stacks, right? And obviously the top DFS pros are aware of that. And a lot of their lineups, you're seeing quarterback +1. So Herbert plus Keenan Allen and a bring back. Murray plus Hopkins, 2 bringbacks. So getting a little different there. But yeah, Gino, DK, Foster Moreau, bring back. This one had Herbert +2, Tua plus Waddle, with Nico Collins bring back. So yeah, a lot of quarterback +1 and a bring back. Now, you'll notice here, a lot of the pros, they will do this. They're going to fade some chalk and then eat other chalk. So, this is a way for them to leverage the field. So you will see, had Tua and Burrow. Faded the chalk, was under the field here. Obviously, over the field on Kyler Murray. Quite a few quarterbacks. 12 quarterbacks. But going to eat a lot of chalk somewhere. So when you got a guy like Jeff Wilson, you project to be really high owned, the way to leverage the field is you need positive leverage in that. Okay, so if you think Jeff Wilson is really going to smash, you see few ways for him to fail, and you think he's going to be very high owned. Well, the way to get positive leverage there is to go be above the field. So almost went all in on Jeff Wilson, 71%. Henry, very high exposure to Henry, 23%, considering the field is only 7% on him. And then James Conner, really would thought he would have been higher on because he was in a smash spot too. But yeah, only 10% of the field compared to like 54% of Wilson's. Just very crazy. Only $700 apart in salary. Josh Jacobs. So, even though he may have really missed on Jeff Wilson, 71%, way too much exposure for a guy to fill. All it took was having 15% exposure to Josh Jacobs. Positive leverage there on a player who scored 51 points to make this a positive ROI day. Pretty much even, just under the field on Rachaad White. Same with Kenneth Walker. DK, Lockett, Keenan Allen, all high exposures there. Godwin, Hopkins. Very large wide receiver pool for most of the pros this week. A lot of names. Now, next one we're going to look at whistles. What was very interesting to me about whistles, I started looking through his lineups, and I was like, wow. He loved Herbert this week. Quarterback. Herbert +2. Didn't force bringbacks. Herbert, Eckler, Palmer. So he went about it a lot of different ways. Eckler is obviously a receiving back, so he stacks with Herbert very well. Herbert, Allen, Everett. So he pretty much had exposure to everyone in the offense for the Chargers. Herbert, Eckler, Carter, Herbert, Eckler, Everett. Sometimes there were bringbacks, but you could tell it wasn't forced. Okay, there we go. Herbert, Eckler, Carter, DeAndre Hopkins. Now, you're like, wow, that's a lot of Herbert, right? Talk about going all in on one player. 100% exposure to Justin Herbert. Now, positive ROI day, and Herbert had a pretty good day. But if Herbert had a ceiling game, I mean, it's very hard to see a scenario where Whistles doesn't bink the competition. And really, had he had a lot more exposure to Josh Jacobs, he might have found the right combination to really be in the top. Let's see what his top performing lineup was. Yeah, 155. So probably could have gotten the top 50 pretty easily. But yeah, outside of Herbert, he was obviously high on Eckler. And, part of that is just the Herbert stacks with 2. Just naturally going to get a lot of Eckler there. Michael Carter, that didn't go well, obviously, because he got hurt. Not enough Jacobs. Being a little under the field on Jeff Wilson certainly helped. And then obviously pass catchers going to have a lot of Chargers wide receivers just being 100% in on Herbert and doing +2. So DeAndre Carter, Keenan Allen, Josh Palmer. That was the 3 highest exposures. And one thing I'd like to note is pros, they are a lot of guys, which we'll get into the next pro, one of the top sports bettors / DFS pros in the world normally won't have like a ton of exposure. It will be kind of max 30 to a lot of players. However, if they have a player they are really high on that week, they will tend to break rules because a lot of times taking a stand on certain players is how you win some of your best contests. If you're right, you're really going to be right that week. And it's really going to be beneficial money-wise to be right. But yeah, Allen, Palmer, Godwin, Garrett Wilson was a great play. Under on Tyreek. Under on Hopkins. On Adams. Higgins. Kirk. No surprise that Everett was his highest tight end exposure. A lot of Hayden Hurst as well. Not too much exposure to any defense. Under the field on Jets defense. Always a good way to leverage the field on a very high-owned defense because it's such a high position of high variance. Let's take a look and need lunch money real quick. So yeah, even the guys, that we normally look at that lose money every week, it was a positive ROI day for a lot of them. So need lunch money, 200, 201 was his best lineup, 82% total ownership. Geno +2, 2 bringbacks. Geno, DK, Tyler Lockett, Foster Moreau, and Josh Jacobs. And then had Montgomery, Perrine, Wilson, and Miami D. Not going to be a good day when your highest owned quarterback is Russell Wilson, 13%. Brady, Lamar, just not good enough there. Kyler Murray, you'll take that. He had a great day. Obviously, he was in the winning Milly Maker. And then, fade in some chalk. Herbert, Geno, and Joe Burrow. And, a lot of these guys, a lot of these pros will try to get different at the quarterback position. I'm going to fade some chalk. I'm going to hit some stacks, some low-owned stacks. And if that stack goes off, that's my contrarian stack. I'll play chalk at running back. I'll play chalk at wide receiver, which we will see here. But that is their way to get different. Obviously, over the field on Michael Carter, Eckler, Montgomery, and Josh Jacobs. And you have 15% on Josh Jacobs, scores 51 points. Really didn't matter a whole lot what the rest of the lineup did. Positive ROI day. Faded Rashad White, faded Jeff Wilson. That certainly helped too. Sutton, I'm guessing, in Wilson stacks. Same with DJ Moore, probably the bring back there. Positive ROI. Above over the field on DeAndre. And just slightly Garrett Wilson. Under on Adams, Hill, Palmer, and Higgins. And, overall, good choice on that. So really, in his lineup, the biggest difference was just Josh Jacobs, 15%. Now we're going to take a look at some bigger wins. Now, JBC, one of the top DFS pros in the world. DFS Army, you can catch him every week on the breakdown and betting angles, the game plan with the geek. And it was just a few weeks ago from winning $100,000. And had he actually put that lineup in the early slate, had he put it in the Milly Maker, would have been good enough to win the Milly. So his top lineup, and this scored, this ranked 14th, so pretty close, right? Just almost top 10. Derek Carr, Foster Moreau, Josh Jacobs, no bringbacks. Derrick Henry, Jeff Wilson, T. Higgins, Zay Jones, Garrett Wilson, and Carolina D, 125% owned. Now, as far as his exposures, kind of as I was talking about, normally Statsational is a guy who is only going to have maybe a max of about 30% exposure to a certain player, as you can kind of see here. Tua, that's his highest owned, 28%. However, he will break that rule just to get positive leverage. Obviously, if you project a guy like Rashad White to be, 40+% owned, if you need positive leverage, you think it's a great play, you're going to be over the field on that. So 57%. Latavius Murray, he was over the field there. Josh Jacobs, 11%. And it's crazy. Didn't have a ton of Josh Jacobs, right? Just about 10%, a little over that. But enough of him to almost win the Milly Maker. You place top 20 in the Milly Maker. There's really not much of a difference between 20 and first. It's just variance from that point. So pretty awesome. Shout out to Statsational. Had a great season so far. Pretty crazy. Positive leverage, had 50% Jeff Wilson, but just being under the field enough, positive leverage there. Tyreek Hill over the field, Garrett Wilson over the field, Chris Godwin, Over the field, Mike Evans. And yeah, under the field on some of the bigger names. Christian Kirk, DeAndre Hopkins, Keenan Allen, Devontae Adams. Over on Andrews, 26%. Gerald Everett, and Hayden Hurst. Now, the last DFS Pro we are going to take a look at, Osimo, known by many as the GOAT. The reason I was excited to look at this week because obviously everybody knows who Osimo is. And we often, I've talked about several times on this show, Osimo, pretty much every week we've looked at it, except for, maybe 1 or 2 small positive ROI weeks, had a losing season. And the Milly Maker, I might say, Osimo obviously is an MME player. He plays a lot of contests. He wins a lot of contests. But the Milly Maker is the payout structure. It's not good, right? So you're pretty much playing to win or to finish top 10 in the Milly Maker. But even from after 1, the payout is so bad. He plays third and, wins $40,000. First place is $1 million. It's crazy. But overall, negative ROI, MME in the Milly Maker until this week. And as I always say, most weeks these guys are going to lose money, but it just takes that one big win to make the season. So now he has a positive ROI on the season. So, and Osimo, I've looked a lot at his lineups. He is this type of player who no quarterback is out of his player pool. So he'll play any quarterback, because he's going to play a lot of chalk, and he tends to do a lot of heavy stacks. You could see his strategy this week was different. He went with more of the skinnier stacks, and it really paid off for him. But yeah, he will eat a lot of chalk, but play a lot of contrarian quarterbacks and contrarian stacks, and just hoping that one game, that one stack hits, and obviously some of the chalk smashes that week. And, Rachaad White, certainly had he had a little bit better of a day, this lineup might have won the whole thing. But Mike White, Garrett Wilson, that was the stack. No bring back. And then we got Perrine, Rachaad White, and really have Perrine and T. Higgins in a stack here. So, yeah, that Cincinnati game was more high scoring on the Cincinnati side. This is certainly, we're looking at a lineup that probably wins the whole thing. And, of course, Rachaad White. And then you had 3 stacks. You had White to Wilson, Perrine to Higgins, and then Rachaad White and Chris Godwin. And you also had Andrews. You had Jacobs as a one-off. So got different, really, 3 spots. 4. White, Godwin, Jacobs, Carolina D. 224 points. Good enough for 3rd place in the Milly Maker. Carr plus Adams plus Jacobs. No bring back. Brady, White, Godwin. Bring back with Njoku. Carr, Adams. So this one, heavy stacked. Carr, Adams, Moreau, Jacobs. And that's really what you see a lot of weeks in the Milly Maker with Osimo's lineups. But a good combination here. Plus 1 on some, plus 2, plus 3 on others. Pretty crazy, though. Is some of these as heavy stacked as some of these are? The one that won it had a lot of stacks, but it was really just a primary of a quarterback +1. And that's what we see in a lot of Milly Maker winners and, other secondary stacks. So he had 2 other secondary stacks. As far as his exposures, Tua was the highest at quarterback, and Brady and Justin Herbert. So really between Tua and Herbert, he picked 2 of the better quarterbacks to stack. Under the field on Geno and Burrow. Over on Rachaad White and Wilson. Pretty crazy, right? Had 68% Wilson, who failed, still placed 3rd in the Milly Maker, 42,000 positive ROI. And obviously, a lot of that is contributed to Jacobs being in that lineup. 12% exposure to Jacobs. So you just need a little bit of exposure to the right player to really make your day. Garrett Wilson, Tyreek Hill, Chris Godwin, DJ Moore, Keenan Allen. Obviously, had some Mike White. So stacks there with Garrett Wilson. Didn't have a lot of Mike White, though. I believe he only had about 3%. Yeah, 3% Mike White. So had Garrett Wilson as a one-off, probably in some lineups or, small game stacks, secondary stacks. A lot of Tua, so obviously stacks with Tyreek Hill a lot. Quite a bit of Keenan Allen, stacked with Herbert, of course. Under the field on Higgins, Hopkins. And, really not a lot of exposure to any wide receiver, the most being 16%. So great day for him. Now, surprise, surprise, we went over JBC's lineup, DFS Army, Stacksational. This is the guy I was talking about, DFS Army VIP Sliderss, second DFS Army VIP to finish top 2 in the Milly Maker this year. Won $100,000 for a second place finish. Top lineup, Justin Herbert, DeAndre Carter. Obviously had another secondary stack of Josh Jacobs and Foster Moreau, Perrine and Higgins. Very similar to Osimo, who he placed 1 higher than. James Conner. So Herbert plus Carter, and then a bring back of James Conner. Chris Godwin is a one-off, and then Carolina defense, 87% exposure, 225 points. Awesome win. Yeah, never was really too high on anyone. Kind of flat across the board at quarterback. Some core plays that he was obviously really on. Kenneth Walker, Jeff Wilson, which Jeff Wilson was a great play. He just failed. It didn't work out. That's just how it goes playing DFS. And Rachaad White, the same there. Over the field, enough on Josh Jacobs. All it takes is that one lineup, win 100,000. So shout outs to Sliderss, DFS Army VIP. And by the way, if you watch the show and you are you play DFS, obviously, you're not a DFS Army VIP. You want to be one. Use code FantasyFling for 10% off a VIP subscription. This gives you access to all the tools that so many DFS Army VIPs have won to use big contests week after week. Scott Newman's had so many takedowns this year. We've had Rapid Fire XD won the Milly Maker week 1. Sliderss, second place in the Milly Maker this past week. So now's the time to join the channel or join the team, be a VIP. If you watch the channel, please, if you like this content, like, comment, subscribe, and share it, and hit that notification button so that you never miss an episode. That's going to do it for week 12 review. Best of luck, everyone. We will see you all next week. Out.